Hi, and welcome back to Old School Blues Guitar. We are going through Lightning Hopkins' Airplane Blues, an acoustic blues tune in the key of E. This is by request from one of my subscribers. Very good choice. This is a Lightning Hopkins tune with a ton of creative and unique ideas in it. Now, we started out doing the introduction. Now I'm going to try to go through the verses, and there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 verses where Lightning sings. And the easiest way I could think of to lay this out for you is, instead of going through the whole song verse by verse, is by just showing you some of the different ideas that he plays over the 1, over the 4, and over the 5. And then you can go back and listen to the song and try to put it all together. So when he gets over the 1, the first thing he does, when he finishes the introduction, that's the first verse. Now, I'm not sure if I got the timing right. But the first lick is just that same lick that we used in the introduction. And I'm doing it without the bass here to show you the lick. So my first finger is on the 7th fret of the 1st string. My second finger is doing the bending on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. And it's like this. And then he does this. And it sounds to me like he's playing it right here. So open 2nd string, 3rd fret of the 2nd string, bent a little bit, and then twice open 1st string, and then twice on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Open 1st, open 2nd. So that whole lick. And then we're going to do this again. 2nd fret of the 3rd string, hammering on to the 1st fret. 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then our open 6th bass. That lick throughout Lightning Hopkins' stuff, you're going to use that little sequence over and over and over again. So again, he does this. When he wraps up over the 1, getting ready to go into the 4, a lot of times he'll use the E7th. So you take that E shape and put your pinky on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So there's one example. Actually, there's 2 verses where he's playing this. Like that. And then he usually pauses back in the E chord. And then over the 1, he'll play those licks. Now there's a few variations. Once he does the single string like I just did. And it sounds again like he might be keeping the chord shape while he does that. Because you tend to hear more than one string sounding out. So you can play that, depending on how your technique, you can make that sound a little bit different. Then he does these double stops. So we're doing this typical Lightning Hopkins lick where we're sliding. First finger's on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. Second finger's on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string, and then we're sliding up 1 fret. And sometimes he stays on the 2nd and 3rd strings. Goes into the E, sometimes the E7th. Now another variation that I hear him doing on this lick, it's like this. You hear the difference? There's the first way. It's more like this. Oh. What I think he's doing there, I'm not sure, is he's going. So he's doing that double stop slide, and then picking the second and third strings. And then open first string. And then just keeping his finger where it's at, picking the second string. Then open second string into that lick. So instead of this, whoops. Actually, that's what he's doing. So it's, let me do it slowly. That's it right there. I'm thinking too much. So that is one of the fill licks. And to play it quicker, it's, or you can play, and those are a couple variations on that basic Lightning Hopkins lick that you hear so often. So there's 3 variations. You've got the single string, you've got just the second and third strings on the double stop, and you've got kind of the combination of the 2. And those are some things that he plays over the 1. Now later in the tune, I think it's the last verse or the next to last verse, he does this little thing on the bass string, also when he's over the 1, and it sounds like this. So he's singing, you know, whatever the verse is. Maybe that's what it is. So he's pulling down on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, or I think it's the double, and he lets go to get the open E. I'm putting my first finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string just to give me an anchor. So those licks are in Airplane Blues, what I hear him playing over the 1. And I tabbed each of those out for you. So listen to the song, and that's kind of what he plays as he's singing or in between the verses. Now let's move on to the 4 chord, which is the A7th. Now you could play it very simply and just use an A7. Lightning Hopkins doesn't do that. In this song, he mixes it up and uses some bass runs and some real cool little licks here. So the basic A7th, if you don't know this, make sure you know this chord. You've got your open 5th string. So when the song goes to a 4, we've got our open 5th thumping bass. Now in the first verse, he does something kind of like this, where he starts out in the A chord. But then very quickly he goes to this. I'm not sure the timing on that. I have to listen to that again. But it sounds to me like he's got his first finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, maybe a little bit of the 3rd. And he's going back and forth between the 2nd fret of the 4th string and the 4th fret of the 5th string. To the 5th fret of the 4th string, like that. So the whole thing. Something along those lines. Like Lightning Hopkins, you know, sometimes he'd stick in the 12-bar structure, sometimes he'd, you know, extend the verse a little bit longer. You know, lightning changes when lightning wants to change. That was his expression that he used. So listen to the original, but that's what he's doing on the bass string. And there's another one in in the song where he gets over the 4 and he does something like this. He goes right into that rather than the... He just goes right to it. And you can do all kinds of little variations with that. So he goes to the 4. Whoops. Or you could do something like this. Those are just a couple little variations that I noticed over the 4. Let me check my tab and make sure I didn't miss. I've got a couple others in there, and I'll make sure I go through this with you. Now the B7th, so when he goes over the 5, this is kind of cool. So a B7th chord, he gets to the 5 in the verses, and he does something like this. This is, sounds like he picks a couple times with no chording. He gets mostly the 3rd and 4th string before putting down the A7th chord. So he gets to the 5, and then he goes to the A7. Now you could play it straight through and just stay on that chord. But he does something, if you listen real carefully, I had to listen to this a bunch of times, where he does this little walking bass, which is kind of cool. And what he does is when he gets that, he's walking from the 4th to the 3rd to the 2nd string on the 5th string. And then it sounds like to me he's going to do this lick where he bends down, or pulls down on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. And then he's going to get the 2nd fret of the 4th string, which is an E. And then you're back in the E. You can keep the E shape and do that if you wanted to. This is probably how he does it. One more time. Which I think is really pretty neat. So I didn't play that great that last time, but it sounds you might just go into that. Keep an E chord shape so we can do that more easily. I'm just learning this too. I'm showing you what he's doing, but I gotta figure this how to play that. So there's I think he probably stays in that chord shape, because that just sets your fingers up to be back in the 1 when you go back into the song. So those are some ideas of what to play. If you listen to the whole song, each verse is a little different. You know, one verse he'll sing of one verse played all the way through. If If you have any questions, comments, let me know, and we'll wrap this up by taking a look at the 2 guitar breaks and the end tag, which he uses at